come to my attention that things are not too swift. And I thought, well, I'll talk about that tonight. Looking for something to talk about. And then I got to think about what am I going to call it? you know, I got to call it something. So I just come up with just a violence. That's what I'm going to talk about, violence. You look around you today and you see all kinds of violence, corruption, lawlessness, moral decline, and wonder what is to be, what's going to happen. Murders everywhere, homosexuality, adultery, and every type of sin one could imagine is everywhere, and all these things seem to virtually go unpunished. And even our law system seems to be corrupt. You look around you and you see all these things people do, and they throw up their hands. What are we going to do? What's going to happen? What are we going to do? I've heard my daddy say that 50 some odd years or more than that, 60 years ago. I've heard Dad say, I don't know what people's going to do. Well, today everybody's running around. I don't know what people's going to do. And I'm imagining they done that when Grandpa was around, even before that. Even in the Bible, we find people with that same situation. Time ain't changed. Man ain't changed. Time may have a little bit, but man ain't changed. They're still got the same mentality that they had at that time. Some of them are a little smarter. That's about the only difference. But we look around throughout all history, there's been corruption everywhere. And there are similar situations in the Bible. People did virtually the same things that people are doing today long ago, back in the old times, if you please, eons or aeons, every how you want to put it, long time ago. In the book of Habakkuk, poor old Habakkuk, he saw all this stuff around him too, just like we do today. Saw all this violence and everything around him, and it had him tore up. And he had this to say to God. He said, "Oh Lord, how long shall I cry, and you will not hear? Or even cry out to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you not show me my iniquity, and cause me to see trouble? For plundering and violence are before me. There is strife and contention arises. Therefore the law is powerless. The justice never goes forward. For the wicked surround the righteous. Therefore perversion, justice proceeds." Now, don't that sound like today? Sounds just about like today. Poor old Habakkuk, he sees all this stuff happening, and he's just threw up his hand. What are we going to do? What are we going to do, Lord? And that's about the same way people are today. They cry, what are we going to do? And in so many words, God said, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Continue reading. Verse 5. He said, look among the nations and watch. He said, for I'll work a work in your days which you would not believe, though it were told you. For indeed I am raising up the Chaldeans, a bitter and hasty nation, which marches through the breadth of the earth to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity proceeds from themselves. Their horses also are swifter than leopards, and more fierce than the evening wolves. Their chargers charge ahead. Their cavalry comes from afar. They fly as the eagles that hasten to eat. God said, I got this under control. He says, I'm working on a nation that's going to take care of this. They're going to come through here and they're going to clean things up. He said, just don't you worry about it. He said, I'm doing a big wonder here. So he said, don't worry about it. No, so many words. He had it under control. Today I'm convinced that God is also doing things in our days that if we could see like Habakkuk, we wouldn't understand it either. We wouldn't understand it. It doesn't matter what you think or what we believe. God is still in control. Now, just believe me. He is still in control. There's been corruption as long as man has been here, and he's taking care of it. We're still here, aren't we? We're still here. But let me tell you, time is approaching, and it's fastly approaching that he'll take care of it. He's going to take care of it. The Lord saw all this wickedness of man once upon a time. He looked up at it, and he saw it too. And he saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Genesis 6 and verse 5 is where you find that. And you know, today, the majority of people of the world have that very same thought. Their hearts are continually on evil, on evil. You know, you can't find very many people anymore that is concerned about spiritual things. You know, you just don't find it. People, you know, I associate with lots of old people because I'm an old person myself. You know, I ain't here 17-year-olds, that's for sure. But anyway, these old people at my age, I tell you what, they amaze me at the way they talk and the way they act. And they've got one foot in the grave and another on a banana peel, as they say. And they still act like that. And they talk like that. And it's just like these people right here. They're God was going to do the same thing, and it may have already done it that he did then. He said, I gave them over to the stubbornness of their heart to walk in their own devices. You know, after so long of being that type of a person, and you won't go to God and you won't listen to what he's saying, he'll finally say, well, let's go and do what you want to. You know, he's done that before. He's done that in the past. You can read about it. He's done it. In Psalms 81 and verse 12, that's what he said. He said, I turned them loose. Let them go walk in their own devices. If they know so much, let them take care of their own devices. But God said, I've got this under control. Remember, he's the one that's got it. The wicked boasts of his heart's desires, and the greedy man curses and spurns the Lord. The wicked, in the haughtiness of his countenance, does not seek him. All his thoughts are, there is no God. How many times you heard that? I fussed with a man. Well, I ain't gonna put it that way. Argued with a man not very long ago that said there was no God. And when I finished talking to him, he still said there was no God. I said, well, what if you're wrong? I said, what if you're wrong? I said, let's talk about this a minute. I said, I say there is, and you say there ain't. I said, what if you're wrong? He said, well, I guess it's burned in hell. Now, ain't that some attitude? Ain't that some attitude? I mean, it just flabbergasts me the way people do and talk. And this man was, I think he's a year or two older than I am. You know, the wicked, they're here. He says the wicked boast in their hearts what they, you know, the way they want to do. And they are haughty in their countenance. They don't care. They only think about one thing. They ain't no God. Because if I tell you that there is a God, then I need to do something. Because God is expecting me to do something. And that's one of the reasons that people won't admit that there is a God. Because they know if they do, they got to change their whole lifestyle. And I ain't going to do that. I've been married 5 times, and I ain't going to do that. You know, that's the philosophy of the world. You know, I used to be a male. Now I'm a girl, and I ain't going to change that. I used to be a girl. Now, you know, it's pathetic. People are not going to change it. They just ain't going to do it because they say there is no God. And if there is no God, it doesn't make any difference what you do or how you do it. But if there is, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So what do we do? So how can we cope with this and live in this type of a world? How do we cope and live with it? Well, I suggest a couple, 3 things that we can do. One thing is that we can answer just like Peter and John did when they told them that so many words that they ain't no God, because y'all get out here and quit teaching that stuff. Quit teaching it. We ain't having you teaching that. And then they said, whether it is right in the sight of God to give heed for you to give heed to you rather than to God, you be the judge. Now you ask yourself that very same question. Does it seem right to give heed to God or to your own whims or your own personal physical abilities or wants and what have you? Things of this world. You know, the old body is weak, but the spirit is strong if you'll let it. And it can overpower the body. It can do it. And they said, you judge it. Would it be better to do what God says or man? Just judge it. I mean, which way do you think it'd be the best? And number 2, if any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of God. If any man minister, let him do it as the ability which God giveth, that God in all things may be glorified through Jesus Christ, to whom the praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. 1 Peter 4:11 statement. You think about that for just a minute. Everything that we talk and say needs to be as the oracles of God. You know what that means? That means that what we say, what we, every word that we say needs to be truth. Truth. It needs to be truth. God is truth. Remember? And everything that we say needs to be the oracles of God. God is truth. So we need to speak the truth and we need to act the truth. We need to speak it and act the part. That's something that the world is just will not do. And then there's a number 3 thing that we can do. Do not be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what that good and acceptable will of God is, and that perfect, acceptable, and perfect. Romans 12:22. There's lots of things in this world that has to be conformed. To be transformed, because you can't be used in the way that they are. Well, if you naturally do something like the world does, just don't give it any thought, you're conformed. You're conformed. That's the way it is. That's just the way it is. You're the original. You're conformed. But if something changes it, you're transformed. So it's better to be transformed than it is to conform. We don't need to be conformed to what everybody else is doing. We don't need to be conformed with agreeing with what everybody else is doing. We need to be transformed, and that's happening in your mind. We need to get our mind straight. We need to understand what God is doing and be like Habakkuk. Lord, what are we going to do? Well, the Lord told us, I got this. Well, that's what we need to understand. All the things we see in this world, God is taking care of it. What we need to do is to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves in the sight of God. That's what we need to do. We can live in this world and be it, but we don't have to be a part of it. God said to abstain from all these things. And he said, I didn't mean this and that. If I did, you got to leave the world. He made that statement. So we have to live within it, but we can't be conformed to it. We got to be transformed from it. So Jesus, in saying all of this, you know what he said about it? Come unto me. Jesus said, come unto me. I am the light. I am the way. He is the truth and the light. That's where we're going to find it. We ain't going to find it in some man or some organization. We're going to find it in Jesus. And in order to do that, we have to come to him. He's knocking at the door. Are we ready? Are you ready? Have you done that? Tonight, the invitation is yours. Come to Jesus as we stand and sing this song. There's a fountain